I think several reasons. Number one, I think there is a servant leader culture out there, and I think it was some of the great leaders in the past, the Stuart Motts and Stanley Kresge's, and they were not after. They didn't need name recognition. They didn't need to build an empire. I mean, Stanley would sign every check for a while that it went out. They hired people in their image. And that's what happened. And so you had Ted Taylor and you had Bill White and you had, none of these are these names that you would see nationally. They weren't in the news all the time. They weren't the people being shot at for being arrogant with their foundation strength and so on. And the other thing is they never used those resources in the foundation world for ill gain. They always did the right thing for it. They didn't do it politically. We didn't get into any of the issues of the Cleveland Community Foundation issues, the Ford Foundation in New York. We didn't get into any of that stuff. It was always done for the right reasons. And I think there are two or three reasons for that. I think number one is that there was a real recognition that with these resources come responsibilities. So the foundations felt all along, we have to have professional program people. They're the ones that can make these decisions. We have to work with professional fundraisers, grant seekers. They are people we can trust. They have a code of ethics. They have ethical standards. They have certification process. So we have to do these things, and in order to have a fair, in a sense, balanced infrastructure. That so much was so important to the foundations that the Kellogg Foundation gave significant monies to the Association of Fundraising Professionals to establish a strong code of ethics, a strong enforcement, and so on. The first grant ever received by the Association of Fundraising Professionals was from the Kellogg Foundation, and that was overseen by none other than Dr. Peter Ellis. And so you know that every single dollar of that investment, as he and Russ used to call it, was spent wisely. And one would say, why didn't they just concentrate on their sector? Again, it goes back to Russ's wisdom. He knew you couldn't do it just with their sector. If we're going to grow, we have to have professionalism at the same level. Those grant seekers have to be as professional, as accredited, as ethical as do the organizations they serve in the foundations. So that's what I think really, in a sense, made Michigan different. And they all saw that. Ted Taylor saw that. He, again, in the form of Bill Baldwin, who followed, and so on. All these people were in the same cast as Stanley Kresge. You know, Stanley used, I remember receiving a grant from him when I was president of Nazareth College to finish our auditorium. And I remember on the back of the check, he said something in the name of God, signed by him. And I'm looking at this check, and at the time it was about a $700,000 check. Now, remember, I was president in '72. That's a century ago. $700,000 was worth some money then. And he signed that check himself. And to me, that says a lot about how they really understood their stewardship of those funds. There just wasn't arrogance. And the same with the Mott Foundation and their outreach to community and the programs they started were absolutely incredible. And Charles Stewart Mott was, I mean, he was tough. I remember one time he got very upset. There were 3 or 4 of us talking with him, and I took some papers that he had given to me, and there was a paperclip on it. And he got upset and grabbed that paperclip. And Russ Malby will tell you the story about that. And it's just one of those things that typified him. You know, he wasn't a wastrel. I mean, he had all this money and so on, but in his mind, we have to keep as much as we can to do what we do. We give money away. We do not spend it. Now, there were some foundation staff that didn't care for that because they, you know, their offices weren't quite what some of the other foundations were, but they all had that kind of real substance about them. I think they were frugal, they were wise, they were focused on what their job was, and again, they were servant leaders. They were true servant leaders. And you know, it's easy to say, it's a wonderful watchword, but to be a servant leader and to live it, and you saw it every day going on, and you saw it in the not-for-profit community too, and in people that ran, you know, Little Sisters, Big Brothers, Star Commonwealth. I can go on, and they're all incredible people. Any one of them could have gone to industry and made much more money, and you know, for that matter, you could have, Joel could have, Peter could have. You elected not to. You elected to really stay in a field where you could make an impact and make a difference that was measurable. And we could do that. We could measure it, and I think that was the important aspect of it.